Hello and welcome to the Red versus Blue Restoration podcast slash what if episode where my good buddy Nash and I are going to be discussing our thoughts, assumptions, opinions, and hopes for the upcoming quote-unquote final season for Red versus Blue. Now, Red versus Blue, if you were unaware, if you're someone who's never really played Halo, not really a fan of machinimas or animation or anything of that nature, is a series that's been going on. This will be, I believe, the 17th season, even though a lot of them are about to be retcon or redcon.
This is season 19.
Season 19?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm getting old, dude. My memory's going.
I know.
But, hey, fuck you. But, it's a show that's been out regarding Halo. It's about a group of soldiers known as the Reds and Blues. Starts off as more just like a funny series, which then goes into more serious aspects and everything of that nature. I can't recommend it highly enough. Before we discuss it, though, I had a really big question that I wanted to run by you, Nash. So,
Oh boy, big questions.
of course, I always come with the big. I'm always prepared for these things. So, I personally don't remember what my first episode is that got me into Red versus Blue. I don't really remember what it was. I know it was when they were like at the end of the Halo 2 era, beginning in the Halo 3 era. I remember that. So it might have been season 3, maybe season 4. No, not season. Probably like season 4 or 5. That might have been when I first got into the show. But do you remember or recall the first thing you saw with Red vs. Blue and you were like, oh, I gotta watch more of this?
Oh, how could I forget? No, I remember pretty much everything about the first time I saw it. I don't remember why I was looking for it or if I was looking for it, but I remember back in the day on the old Xbox 360, back in the good old days.
Oh, of course, the good old days.
They used to do like videos on the marketplace, and I found the video they did where it was the DIY episode where they were showing off the new maps for Halo 3, and I'm trying to remember how I even found that on the dashboard. I might have just been, or in the marketplace, I might have just been looking for something. I don't know, but I found that, and it was just these guys on Halo on these maps standing around talking, and I was, at the time, especially obsessed with Halo 3. So,
I mean, who wasn't?
when I was, well, yeah, exactly. Every Friday night it was Chinese food and Halo 3. Those are good times. And then I used to race with some people when I made racing maps. But, I don't remember how I found it exactly, but anyway, I found it, and then it was just these guys standing around, like, doing funny shit on this episode, and there was something about the mood and, like, the music. We talk about the old music back in the day they used to use for the scene transitions and such.
The music is what added that, like, one of the best things about the show. That is so underrated about the show itself. Is not only just the music, but like the intro music just always gets me whenever. Like, I know we've rewatched it numerous times. And I just remember, like, sitting down, and as soon as the show starts and that music just kicks in again, it just brings back all the good memories.
Yeah. That original season, like, just that, I don't even know what you'd call it, that, like, front porch, I don't know what the hell you'd call it, like, just chicken coop, like, Rooster Teeth music, I guess. I don't know how to even describe it, but it just fits the mood of the characters so perfectly, but anyway, but I heard that, and it was just, I guess I just loved the idea that people at the time were creative enough to take this game that's, like, has pretty serious multiplayer, and obviously was really fun, and had a lot of not serious multiplayer too, which was part of why Halo 3 was so god tier, and just, like, make something out of it with, at the time they had better resources by the time I started watching it, but still, it was like, it was just in a video game just being creative, and having these guys stand around and bullshit in this, like, relatively serious game. And I just thought it was really fucking cool. But I found like I said, I found the DIY episode, and just, I don't know why, I was obsessed with it from there, pretty much, though. I just loved the characters, and I loved, like, just how they were doing this. Like, I just thought it was the coolest fucking thing. So, I found that episode, watched it for a while, then I found out it was an actual series, because I guess I just started looking it up after that, and I caught it. By this point, they were already putting the episodes on YouTube, so I caught it. This would have been 2009, I remember specifically. So I ended up finding the episodes, and I started watching it from, like, season 3, I think, because by the time I saw it, they were already in Halo 2. So I started watching it, and then I realized I was kind of in the middle of it, so then I went back and started from the very beginning, and I finished all the Blood Gulch stuff. Again, it was already on YouTube by this point. And then the thing was, they didn't have, at this time, by the time I finished, they didn't have the, what's it called? They didn't have the follow-up to the Blood Gulch Chronicles on YouTube yet. It was still exclusive to the website, and at the time, I wasn't really using the computer a lot, as ridiculous as that seems now. But I was still relatively new to that shit, so I really didn't bother to check the website or anything. So I just figured they ended the series and that was it. And I was like, really? Tex just dies in the spaceship and that's the end of the series, huh? Like, I don't get to fucking find the answer. So at some point, and then what happened after that was like a number of months later, maybe a year later, is when they released that scene that we all know and love now, for people who've seen it, where Caboose throws the grenade at the wall with Agent Washington, who, fun little story about that, because I didn't have context to that scene.
I love that scene so
Well, they released that scene in just a video, like it wasn't the episode, it was just that scene.
Not my fault, so I put a wall in my way.
I didn't have any context. Like, I thought the meta was fucking Wyoming, because the armor color was the same, and I just figured they changed his helmet. And then they mentioned Wyoming when Church is, like, running away from the meta. So I was like, wait, that's Wyoming? What happened? I'm confused. Why did they make this scene and not just do a whole season? I was so lost. So, but I remember finding that, like, and just thinking it was something alone. And I thought Agent Washington was Donut or something. And I just figured they changed the armor color. Because at the time, since I hadn't watched it a lot, I didn't really remember even who Donut really was. So I just remembered he was there. So I assumed maybe they just changed his armor color or something. But anyway, so I found that scene, and eventually that led me to finding the episodes on YouTube, because they started uploading the full season 6 and on episodes on YouTube. So that's when I was finally able to starting to catch up on that. So I saw that stuff, and then it stopped at, and then well, by the way, I forgot to mention, you go through season 6 the first time with no context. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Boy, that was a swerve. That God, I mean, I remember exactly how I felt watching that the first time. Oh my god.
I found it interesting that you found it on the Xbox dashboard. I think I found it randomly because I used to watch a lot of like animations and things like that. I used to be huge on, like, I still am. Like, I watch a lot of animation channels and things like that on YouTube. But I think at the time I was big into like the COD animations that people were doing, and people, because I grew up like you said, like Friday Night for you was like playing Halo and everything. For me, it was playing a lot of Call of Duty, like Black Ops and things like that, which is, that's 2012, so I don't remember what I'd be really playing at that time. Maybe like the old Modern Warfares or something like that on like my brother's Xbox before I got my own. But I remember just randomly finding an episode, and like I said, I don't remember the episode itself I found, but similar to what you said, like I saw an episode and I'm like, oh, that was a really funny animation, but then when they were talking, I'm like, they're talking like there's more to the show. And it wasn't a playlist, but it just, like, in the YouTube, like, suggestion, it was like episode 10 or episode 11. I'm like, wait, episode 10, 11. Then I saw all the seasons. I'm like, wait, season 5 or season 4? Like, what the hell? Like, so I went back and I was watching all of it, and that was before they did all the remasters and everything. So still, like, they had the original, like, season 1 where they had, like, the reticle and everything. Yeah. So it still wasn't like pristine as this now, even though it's beautiful now, the remasters they've done and everything. But we were discussing that about how, like, the remasters have taken out certain things about the show, or they've removed things that didn't really need to be removed. It's
mostly the end credit stuff from the original episodes that they removed, which I wouldn't say was really of any importance.
The beautiful Warthog music.
Still, yeah. Well, the Warthog music, unfortunately, is due to this copyright and licensing bullshit.
I know,
but everything. It ruins old TV shows. Not to get off topic, but they just released the show Cheers on Blu-ray for the first time, and there's a bunch of stuff missing from that.
Well, we were talking about that 70s show, how they had to, like...
They didn't butcher that the way they butchered Cheers on DVD. Like, I was reading about the original DVD release of Cheers, and it's like even when they did the episodes on syndication after it originally aired, like, they chopped up the 3-part finale to where there were just important things missing. Like,
really?
I was reading about that, and it's absurd, the stuff that they get rid of for syndication sometimes.
That's why I like...
And it's not like it is now where somebody's got a digital file of the stuff when they were recording it on their fucking television. This is when you still had a VCR.
They must say they were recording on like the VCR tapes and everything, yeah.
If anyone even has that stuff, you have to be lucky to find that person. We're getting too far off topic, but I just had to point that out, though, as far as like Red versus Blue. Even that, like, the music they get rid of, though, it's very minimal. It's only a couple seconds each, so it's not that serious. It depends, because there's different versions. The original remasters have different music, but everything's there, except for the end credit scenes. And then when they did the Blu-ray release, there's sometimes where there's video, but there's audio missing, and I still don't know what that's about.
You said the one part with Donut where like, he was trapped into the warthog, and the warthog falls on him. He doesn't even scream, which throws the whole...
Which it ruins the whole joke. It makes the whole thing pointless. Like, it's just...
It also ruins the context, because you don't even know he's trapped under there.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Sarge looks over and says, like, Donut, are you okay? It's like, well, why is he in pain? He didn't scream.
Yeah, it throws the whole thing off. And that's why I own, like, 3 different versions of every season.
Yeah, you own the original... Well, because you put the originals on file, and then you bought the DVDs and the Blu-rays.
Yeah.
Which I remember when I found that but I don't know if I found the RBX thing, or you found it and you sent it to me. Yeah, I remember you sending it to me, and you were like, I'm buying this, like, right now. And I was like, oh, yeah, I got to get that. And then I completely forgot about it. And then until we went back and we started rewatching the seasons and everything, and I was like, oh, yeah, I still have to buy that, which is fine. But, you know, I wish in a perfect world they wouldn't have removed anything. Yeah. And they would have copyrighted the music that were...
I mean, the original episodes are still on YouTube, and that's... I mean, I've been watching them recently. This is the first time in many years I've watched the originals, like you said, with the reticle in the middle. It's funny to watch that now, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, like half the screen is missing, if not more. I didn't even realize it at the time.
Well, do you remember how they, like, actually recorded those? They'd be, like, doing lands... They just did it. Yeah, they were doing, like, lands in their, like... not their kitchen, but they'd be like in their different rooms, like landing it up together, and then trying to do like the head shakes and everything, like trying to talk, but not actually talking. They were just like mimicking it, and then they would do the voices afterwards, which I can only imagine how awful that would be, because then it's like you start doing the voice acting, you start putting it together, you're like, oh, my head was a little off here, and I got to re-record that whole scene. Like, that must have been awful.
And then, for the first 4 seasons, when they did the remasters, they had to reshoot all of that, but luckily they had the audio. I'm assuming they didn't redo the audio, but they had to reshoot all of that, which must have been a lot of fun. So, yeah, but Season 5, they were lucky, because I think Halo on PC had just come out, and that's when they were able to just start.
I think exactly that. It was the Halo on PC, because that's when they moved away from doing it on the Xbox. We got on a side topic there, just talking about Red vs. Blue itself. The reason we're here to talk today, the reason this got brought up is... you had sent me a random text just out of nowhere, and it was just all capital letters. Like
yeah, let's talk about that real quick. And we will preview this.
That caught me so off guard. Like, let me just say before you get into it, I remember I was working out at the gym, and I just get a random text from you. And to put it into perspective, when Nash sends a text message and it's like 4 to 5 messages and it's just all capital letters, I know something either really massive happened or something happened that he does not like. so I was just trying to work out, and I just keep getting buzz on my phone, and I'm thinking like, okay, maybe this is my mom, or maybe this is one of my friends, and I look down and I just see Nash, and I just see like 4 to 5 messages, all like, oh my god, Red versus Blue, new season, it's a throwback, and then there's just the link, and I'm like, this is not like the remake, as they did.
I don't remember if that's exactly what I said.
It's not exactly
like a month ago. But...
Yeah, it's not exactly what you said, but I just remember like seeing all the messages, and it was probably a lot of like yes in there. Like, again, put it in perspective, when
I think I sent that Burnie Burns was writing it, and that's what I got excited.
Yeah,
about. I was like, oh man, okay.
But I just remember seeing the link, and I dropped everything. I was like, let me see what this is. And I thought at first it was like a fan animation or something. And I watched it, and I heard the original voice actor for Church. And I'm like, wait a second, this is real. And then I kept getting your messages like Burnie Burns is directing it, and like yes, and
Matt Hulum's producing it.
But Burnie Burns is writing it. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big one. That's a topic we will hit eventually too.
But yeah, so the message you sent, yeah.
Well, it's funny because we've been talking about this for like a year or two, where it's like, Man, after Red vs. Blue Zero, which don't worry, people, we will review that and we'll give a true perspective on that.
I'm not looking forward to that one.
Me neither, but I'm going to enjoy getting a cathartic experience out of that. But anyway, it's like, we were talking, we're like, what are they going to do with this thing going forward? Because it seems like they killed the Zero idea after it was a complete, just utter disaster, to put it lightly.
I remember finding that because we were talking on Xbox one day, and then we were sending each other like the links, like, oh, Red vs. Blue Zero is canned, like those people are gone. So
yeah, that was interesting. Thank good God. But and anyway, like we were looking up what they were going to do with the series. Were they just going to kill it afterwards? And I was like, I don't imagine they're just going to kill the whole thing. So we've, and then it's been a long time since we looked it up, though, is my point.
It's been a long time.
We kind of just forgot about it, and we're like, well, we'll hear about it when it happens. And I'm not on Twitter as much as I used to, so I wouldn't have seen it there at the time. So,
and we had just finished doing a lot of rewatches of the older seasons.
Yeah, that's right.
We did that like 6 months ago.
Yeah. So so I was just at work one day, and I just decided to type Red versus Blue in just to see what came up. I wasn't even really sure, and then all of a sudden I just saw that trailer, but it had already been released for like a month.
Yeah,
and it was so it was just funny that like we had completely forgotten about it, and then I just found this trailer a month later, and it was like, wow. So that's pretty much that, but that was just crazy.
And just so it's known, I don't know like when I'm able to sit down and like edit this up and then actually put it out, but we're recording this basically at the beginning, like the end of the end of summer, beginning of fall of 2023, and September. Yeah, I don't know where you consider, because I know we both like is it fall? Is it the end of summer?
It's summertime. It's not fucking fall. I don't know where people.
the only reason why I say it's not summertime anymore is because at this point we'd already be back in school. But back in the old days.
Yeah, but that's a technicality. That's a formality. It's not. Fall does not start in September.
Yeah, but
fall hardly even exists anymore anyway.
I mean, fall time is still the best weather, though. But that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But
well, I wanted to start real quick to get on this thing. I wanted to start because we don't script this show, folks, but we do have some topics listed.
We have a topic.
Try to stay on track.
We have a topic list where we like to go over the topics that we're going to talk about and ideas. And I do a lot of like the note taking and things like that because I'm a very fast typer. But there was something that was brought up. I had never, in my entire life, I did not know this. You saw my general reaction before we hit record. I had no fucking idea until you were like, I think you put that wrong, and I'm like, no.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, no, it's not wrong.
So Schneider over here thought that retcon was spelled redcon, which makes perfect sense actually for what we're talking about. So that's pretty good.
Yeah,
but
red versus blue.
But it's still spelled wrong. He didn't do it on purpose. So.
Well, I went my entire life without knowing it was with a T. You spelled it out for me, and you're like RETCON, and I stared at you, and I was like, that's not fucking true. And then you turn your phone to me, and I'm like, holy shit, it's not Redcon, like 2 word. I always thought it was Redcon, and maybe that's just me being an idiot, because we all know I'm an idiot, but still, I had no fucking idea at all. But yeah, so that's the side tangent. I'm not good with spelling. I've never been good with spelling, but I take good notes, and I'm a good worker, so we go from there. So
his opinion.
Calm down over there.
So anyway, Burnie Burns is writing this thing, and it's not that I don't necessarily have faith, but knowing the modern culture of what people try to stick into the entertainment, so to speak, I'm just saying I don't expect this to really be his best work, and I don't think it really has to technically be his best work either. If this is a farewell season, I think that the story needs to be decent. It shouldn't just be, we shouldn't just straight up do nostalgia the whole season, but I do think you need a fair amount of that in here, because I think what better time for it than when it's about to leave. So I just saying I don't want there to not be any nostalgia, but I just don't want the whole season dependent on it, because season 16 to a degree, and definitely 17, were pretty much all nostalgia based in a way that didn't make any sense, which now that doesn't matter, because that's pretty much all simulation BS. But I just think that, Burnie apparently has had an ending in mind for a while.
Which surprised me when you said that. I had no idea that he had an ending in mind already.
Yeah, that's what I've read from people. So I supposedly that was something he had said on a podcast once, so I didn't see it myself, but I'm just saying that's something I've read quite a bit. And then I just think that this doesn't have to be the best thing he's ever written, but I want it to be good, and I just hope they don't shoehorn like a good season that isn't just doing that shit, especially if it's the last season. Just do what the original characters got to do. Try to make a decent ending to this show. That's all it needs. It doesn't have to be the best season they've ever done, because I don't think you can top what they've done anyway. But it needs to be competent, and I just hope we get a proper end. That's really what's important here.
I mean, I don't think... Because we talked about it before, like, Burnie doesn't need to do... Like, exactly what you're saying. He doesn't need to be perfect, but compared to what the show became and what it's been the last couple of years, I really don't... I don't see him making something bad in a way. And maybe that's just my hopes getting too up there.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. I'm like, I probably have false hope for this, but I'm just praying to God that they keep it together.
Well, the only thing that I'm thinking, because it was really funny when we both found out about this, because we started going through like Twitter or X now, and all the other stuff. And I don't know if you'd pulled it up or you found it on Twitter, but it was the clip from season 14 where Burnie is just yelling at all the writers like, "Oh, I'm here to stop the millennial hacks from ruining the show that I created. When we started Red vs. Blue, we actually gave a shit." And we both had a good laugh about that, because we're like, wow.
We had no idea.
Well, we not only did we have no idea, like, he said that in season 14 as a joke, and then it's just so funny that it actually came true. Like, Red vs. Blue 0 was so bad, he literally had to come back. And that video was so funny when it came up. 'Cause I remember seeing it on Twitter. I had a good laugh for a couple minutes about that. And even now, we'll still, like, whenever we talk about Red vs. Blue, we bring up that or we quote that. It's just so great.
I mean, I don't think... From what I've seen, Burnie's always praised the stuff that they did while he was gone. But I think, as nice as he's trying to be, in the back of his mind, it's probably like, what in the actual fuck did you do? Like, what is this?
And then everything that he had done and built up these characters, and we had mentioned that before we started, like, in the first, 3 to 4 episodes? I only watched the first 5 episodes of Zero until I just gave up on it. Yeah. And in the first 5 episodes, they buried Wash, they buried Tucker, and it's like, what are you doing?
We'll get to that. We got.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
That. But yeah, it's just, it was ridiculous.
So, getting back on topic here, talking about retcon instead of redcon, but whatever. Yes. The way I say things, even if I say retcon, it still sounds like a D, so whatever.
To you, maybe.
Whatever. But so, talking about the retcon itself, making things the not canon, starting where it is, what are your opinions on the quote-unquote retcon?
Well, this particular retcon, I think, works because it's not... It is a retcon, but it's not, actually. Because the whole thing was that seasons 15 to 18 were just a simulation, and I like that because retcons... I both like them and hate them because I think they can be useful, but I also think they're too convenient at times, where you can just throw away an entire set of a show's or any piece of entertainment's history. And in a sense, sometimes it's necessary maybe to get back on track, but sometimes I just hate like pretending that didn't exist because it is there, and it's kind of just like, it's like ignoring the elephant in the room. It's not something I can usually do. But in this particular case, I like how it's done, because even though it's a retcon, it's also kind of not, because it's kind of as if all that stuff still happened, but it just wasn't real. It was the simulation that Church was running. So in other words, seasons 15 to 18 are essentially just looking at what Church was possibly seeing for the future, as absurd as that future was when we see it. But, obviously
wait till we get to, like, the Pizza Quest and everything.
Yeah, like, oh my God. Stuff that didn't happen now, thankfully, but almost like a peek behind in his mind. Like, this is what could happen, but thank God it now didn't.
So, my opinions on it, like, I really like the idea, but there are aspects, I know we're going to get to it because we have, like, things written down talking about, like, Wash and Carolina and everything. Like, I really like the idea of retconning because there's a lot, even though some of them, like the Pizza Quest, like, there are a lot of funny scenes in there, like, some that we, like, even now, like, I'll still laugh about it, like the first time I saw them, but they start talking about aliens and gods and everything. It just made real no sense. So I like the idea. I'm just a little confused. Like, when we first saw the trailer, I remember, like, we were texting back and forth about it. I was like, they're possibly retconning all the way back to season 13? Like,
no.
Like, What do you think they're going to start from there?
Because season 13 ends with Church dying. They're not retconning anything from 13.
Well,
I'm
saying they're not retconning. They're retconning all of like up to like 14, like simulation.
Well, not really. I mean, because you have to remember, season 14 is either prequel stories or stuff that was completely non-canon anyway. That's another episode I'm actually looking forward to making.
But, those are funny.
Like, I don't think they're retconning any of the stuff from 14, because I was debating, well, not really debating, but talking with people online in different sites about that very thing, just because people were curious, and they're like, oh man, they're going to retcon 14, and I just don't think 14 gets enough credit. We'll get to that again another time, but I think that there's some good stuff in 14, and I don't think the idea is to retcon anything from 14. And I think a lot of people kind of just assume that because 14 wasn't good, they're going to completely get rid of it. I think they forget.
I don't think 14 was bad.
Again, we'll get to that, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. It was just a missed opportunity. But it wasn't like the whole season was bad, though. It was just people forget there's good stuff in there because they shoved so much random shit in there. But there's useful stuff in 14. Point being, I don't think 14's really getting retconned with all this stuff. It's just 15 and on. So
it's just weird in my opinion, because the way they had simulation, and I'll just say this now because we keep saying that, oh, we'll get to it. Basically, our ideas are, we're doing this episode because the season 19 or 20 at this point, that's coming out soon, so we wanted to get our thoughts and ideas out there before we do anything. But we have plans to sit down and do basically recaps of all the seasons, like one by one. We're gonna like rewatch them on our own, sit down, go over them, like the best moments, scenes, like how it all transpired and everything of that nature. So we have plans to do that. That's just, if you hear Nash or me say, oh, why did, we'll get to that. That's why we're saying it. But so starting off, like, I know we briefly touched on it. Do you think they start right from that scene where like they're all up there, like Tucker's in the Meta's armor, and it just starts from that scene?
I don't think they're going to, but I think they should, because, and this is kind of getting to another topic, so we'll just hit them at the same time, but I think this season needs to show Hargrove's fate, regardless of if it's him dying or if he just goes to prison or whatever they do with that. But I think they should show us what happened. Because you remember the ending to season 13, it was always very mixed. It was was tremendous in terms of what they did with it, but it was also a complete letdown because they built 3 seasons worth of stuff going after one guy who you never get to see what happens. So they kind of dropped the ball, but also didn't at the same time, and it was a really strange ending to the show had it ended there. So I just think now that they have that opportunity to go back, and they're very lucky in this case, I think they need to show what happened. So I think they should start right from there, and I mean, they could use that as a story device for whatever this is going to be. I don't know if they will, but I think they can. So I just think it's important that Hargrove's fate is shown. If not, I think we're kind of missing an opportunity to write something that should have been done. If not, they're probably going to start it soon after 13. I think also they kind of need to get off course. I wouldn't really throw too much of the Chorus trilogy stuff past the first couple episodes in here.
Well, I think they have to explain what happens, because they're all gearing up for like this big final fight, and then the show season 13 just ends. So they have to explain what's going on, either like show a sequence or show something.
That's what I mean. Like I said, you could take the first couple episodes, but I wouldn't keep them there, or at least if they keep them on course, I wouldn't keep them with that group of people. I think that group of people, their story was told. I think they need to make this about the people who it should be about, not really like forcing Kimball, who I don't think people really give a fuck about, honestly.
Kimball was alright, but she was not very great as a character. She did what she had to do, like, compared to...
She was okay in spurts, but it was just, they were trying to make it more about her, and I don't think that's what
compared to what some of the other characters did in later seasons. Like, I will take Kimball every day for some of them.
Well, yeah, that's true.
But you brought up a really good point when we were talking before the podcast, is it's called Restoration, and we were talking about the whole idea of like, what is Hargrove's fate, what is he doing, and you brought up the fact that if they don't kill Hargrove, the whole point of Restoration could be he has the key to revive the Alpha.
Well, I was going to say
that would be a fantastic idea if that's the case.
I was going to say that's the only reason I think you would really keep him alive. Well, like I said, they might just put him in prison or whatever. So that's I
Yeah, I
guess
mean,
that
that's
makes
always
sense. But I'm just
possibility.
saying, like, if there's an excuse for them to maybe use him as a character in this season, that might be he might have, because he's been, he got all the director's shit and he's been probably doing research on this stuff or whatever. So I would think that he, if anybody has the key to revive the Alpha, so to speak, if that's what the idea is. I don't even know if that's what they're doing, but I would assume if it's called restoration, there's something to that. So I would think, or maybe, it could be Tex, although I don't think they could quite go that route.
How many times can they go back to the well, though, of like...
Well, it's been a long time since they hit that well.
It is true, but I mean, we're far away from, like, the chairman and everything, so, like, can they
Well, no, we're not. He is the chairman.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, still... We're so far away from that. I'm like, do we really need to bring back Tex of all people?
I don't think they have to, but I can just see it. I'm just saying, if Burnie knew the ending a while ago or how he wanted the ending to be,
Yeah, it might involve
right.
one final scene of like Church and
Yeah.
Tex or something,
If they
which
do
would be
it
a
right-
really nice ending.
I mean, again, it's kind of hard with Tex just because it was done a lot, and it was also. It's kind of just tragic. It's not like I think it would be kind of corny if they made it a nice ending, but at the same time, I could see it being done. But I think either way, the Alpha has a chance to be revived. Yeah, that's just. I don't know. That's just the way I see it going. I just hope if they do that, it's not done in a way that's too. Like, I hope they make a decent reason for it happening overall, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that there could be potential there, but it needs to be done well.
There's a lot of questions with this season, both in the actual show and then behind the scenes of it. Like, I don't know which one you want to talk about first, but I guess we can talk about in the show first, since we're already like in there talking about Hargrove and everything. The main big thing, especially like in the later season, was with Carolina and Wash coming back, because I had completely forgotten. You pointed out they're not in that final scene in 13. Like, Wash and Carolina aren't there.
I mean, they are shown, but they're on a ship trying to escape, I think,
Yeah.
essentially.
So what do we do now at Washington, Carolina? Like, are they there? Are they just gone? Like, what? Because we can't.
Well, they'll stick around, but
Yeah, but how do they come back? Like, how do we reintroduce them back to the show?
well, they'll just. I don't think that's too important. I think that's pretty easy. They'll just once this whole thing's over, I'm assuming that's where it'll go anyway, and then they'll just meet up.
I'm just really hoping they don't. This is my biggest fear, and I don't think it's just going to happen, because I really don't think you can have Wash and Carolina gone, especially Wash. I don't think you can have them, which is
No, Zero tried that.
yeah, but
To be fair with Zero, I could be wrong, but I don't know if they had his voice actor available too much.
They
at
did.
the
They
time.
didn't. Yeah, that was one of the negatives to it as well. But my big thing and what I'm worried about is I don't want it to be that Wash is just gone. Like, Wash and Carolina are just like, oh, they're on a separate mission, and they come back the last like 4
I don't
episodes.
think so. They're
And
too important.
yeah, exactly. I really don't think they're going to do that. But I don't know. There's always in the back of my mind whenever like a show is coming back, especially like for a final season, I always wonder what that aspect, like, are they really just gonna like either shoehorn someone in or just completely forget to address somebody? And I don't think someone with as big as they are, like, they're the only two competent soldiers really besides Tucker. It's like I really don't think they can do that. But again, who knows?
I mean, they always tried to shoehorn Dr. Gray in the stuff, so that's the one
Oh,
person I
Dr.
would
Gray.
think is probably going to get shoehorned in here. She was supposed to be like the funny female character. I don't particularly think that worked out that well, but I mean, she wasn't too much of a detriment or anything, but she was
The
kind
only-
of getting overused.
The only really funny like side female was probably Sister, but her whole gimmick was just she was just horny and
She was a whore.
Yeah, she was a whore. Like,
That was the gimmick.
that was her whole gimmick.
That's why in the simulation seasons, and we'll move from this quickly, but they were trying to make her like intelligent, kind of. or
Yeah, it
something.
didn't work,
It wasn't
yeah.
working. It's like that's not who she is. If you want to make her a more respectable character, you just got to not use her because it's just not. It's not. That's not her gimmick.
Her whole like the first like 4 or 5 seasons she's in, she just wants to get banged by everybody, and it's like that didn't make sense. It's like, oh, now she's intelligent, she's a good fighter. It's like, and it's not like they just said like, oh, she's not about that anymore. It was just like the flip of a switch. She went from being, like you said, a whore to just being this most respectable, like, honest character. It's like she's never been that. Neither was her brother. Like, they've never been like that. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Just probably Griff.
Griff.
I almost said Tucker, but I was like, wait, no, Tucker bangs her.
Kind of.
Kind of, yeah. But speaking about that, here's my question: do they finally put over Washington, and can Washington finally get with Carolina?
Well, I don't know if that... See, all that stuff's retcon now, so I don't
know,
if
but I really want... That was the one good thing about the later seasons.
I don't think they really had to have, like, a relationship. I think being just really good friends was kind of the idea.
Oh, of course,
but it seemed like they did kind of leave the door open, but all that stuff's been retcon now, so I don't know exactly what they're going to try to do with that.
I still just love the scene, and I mentioned it before. I'm gonna say it again though, because it's so funny. Just watching Carolina, just having this moment on the beach, holding hands, and then Wash just stares at Carolina to take your clothes off.
Take off your suit.
Take off your suit, and then she's all like freaking out, and then he's like, no, about the tracker, and it's like, oh, yeah,
she never said no.
She never said no.
So,
and then you got out of that one, Wash. Like you tried.
My boy, Washington.
Washington trying to really get in there.
Oh yes, Agent Washington.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to get... But that's another thing we're going to talk about is like who do we believe the best character is, and that's a whole nother topic.
Well, that leads us to our next topic. Speaking of Caboose, which is we're going to go with at least I don't know. I'd have to look up Lopez's voice actor actually. Because
Lopez
I'm
and
not
Caboose.
Sure who it is.
That's why I said like talking about
I
stuff.
should have looked that up beforehand.
I said that's where we're talking about stuff like in character and then out of character because Caboose's voice actor and we believe Lopez's voice actor as well are not going to be available or aren't around for the new season. So what do we...
Burnie Burns was the one that voiced Lopez. So I guess that's why he wasn't in the PSAs, because Burnie wasn't there. So, okay, so maybe that's not one we have to worry about, I would think.
Yeah, but for Caboose, and he's such a main character, and he was always the comic relief, and arguably, like, I don't believe he's the best character. I still will argue that that's Sarge, but what do we do with Caboose? Like, he's one of the best characters in the show, if not one of the most memorable. And if the voice actor's not there, what are we gonna do with him?
They've got a problem on their hands with that one. And the thing is, I've seen the guy, whoever's been doing it, that's been doing it for the PSAs. I didn't watch a lot of the PSAs, but I watched some of them. They've done the past couple years.
They're not.
And the guy's not. That's not Caboose, and they got a problem on their hands. On top of the writing not being where it used to be, so that's two things you have a problem with as far as Caboose's character is concerned. Here was my idea, because I'm assuming that Joel Heyman, with all the problems he had with Rooster Teeth, some of it tweeting related, which the tweets were not remotely that extreme, so I don't know what people were getting bent out of shape about with that, but...
I don't even know about that part, but...
I mean, you can look that up later. They weren't, they're very overblown, but...
Oh, okay.
I mean, apparently he was a dickhead, or he had problems with Rooster Teeth, so there were other factors, but... I was thinking, because, you know, people were pointing out, like, they really got to bring Joel back for this last season. I don't even know if he wants to do it, by the way, so if he doesn't want to do it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he could usually just say, like, no, I'm not fucking being Caboose again.
So, but let's just say, hypothetically, he would be interested. My thing is that you could always bring him back, and the way I look at it, because people at Rooster Teeth are probably just a lot of the millennials, whatever have you, because, boy, that content is dog shit, but it's like... I would assume a lot of people maybe don't want to work with him anymore for whatever the problems were, right or wrong. But so I was thinking, like, if you don't want to rehire the guy, talk to him, especially if Burnie's involved again. And I don't know what their relationship is, obviously. But talk to him, be like, look, we'll bring you in for this amount of dates. We'll pay you X amount for the sessions of voice acting, and you'll leave. Like, don't put him under contract or don't make him a part of Rooster Teeth again. Just bring him in specifically for this project at different times, even if he has to be away from other people, and then have him come in, pay him a certain amount of money for the sessions, and leave. Like, my whole philosophy is, like, do business. If this is your last season and you want to make Caboose's character worth anything at all...
I'm a businessman.
I'm a businessman. Exactly. But it's just... I think that's the way to do it. I just don't... This new guy's not any good. Or my other idea, if they... I have a couple ideas
I
for
like the idea that you originally brought up about Caboose, because if we're really not going to have his voice actor in the show, and if we are going to have to go with this new guy, I like the idea that you brought, and I'm not going to steal all your thunder here, but just the idea of not using his voice. I'm like, you can explain.
Well, my idea was, I had two, actually. I had three. One of them is you can kill him off early, which the people would absolutely go ape shit and riot.
And
so you probably don't want to do that. But again, if you don't have his voice actor, this is the desperation stuff I'm going to. Either A, you kill him and the people will go ape shit, so you can't do that. B, you can shoot him in the throat and make him a mute, but that's going to kind of kill a lot of the character, probably. You probably don't want to do that. Or C, the other option I had, you can shoot him in the throat early on, and then since him and Freckles are such good friends, and Freckles is an AI and whatever, you can have Freckles be the voice box for Caboose, and because they're so closely related now that you can have... I don't think the jokes in Caboose's lines would be as funny that way, but I think you could get an emotional little side story out of that with Caboose's voice box being basically the best friend he's had for the last couple of years, and that way you can get past the problem of we don't have his voice actor, and also give him an excuse to talk and stay on the show and not lose all of his thunder. I just think doing it any other way it's just going to be a problem. It's going to be way too noticeable, and unfortunately and fortunately in this case, Caboose is one of the more iconic characters. You just can't replace that voice. It's not an... Lopez, you can replace the voice because Lopez is a robot. Even Doc would be noticeable though, but it wouldn't be this bad.
Well, the one thing that I literally just thought of this the way you were describing it is with all the advancements in AI and things like that, and we're talking about Freckles, who is an AI, would it be possible, like, imagine we're using the new voice actor, but we all know he's not Caboose, but what if there was his voice, but we threw like not an AI filter, but some kind of thing, either he spoke through AI or something like that, so it's still his voice, quote unquote, but it's altered in a way where it's still like his delivery and everything, but you can tell like, okay, this isn't Caboose's voice, and everyone would be okay with it. Because I'd be okay with that if it's like
they get it close with the AI filter.
I mean, could they get it close?
That's what I mean. I don't know if they... were they not trying to do that already, and that's as close as they could get? That's kind
of... I'm saying, like, the way they talk with, like, AIs and everything, like, instead of the way, like, you and me are talking right now, it'll be in a way where I'm talking, but there is a clear, like, AI gimmick over my voice. And I think... if they were to do that with Caboose, it would work. If we're gonna go with the idea of he's getting shot in the throat, because they can't kill off. If they kill off Caboose right away, there's gonna be problems.
I don't think.
I'd be one of them as well. So like we can't do that.
Yeah, it wouldn't work, but I don't want to see him with a different voice. I'd rather them kill him off. As bad as that sounds to people.
Or the other option would be Caboose is just a one-liner, which that would suck.
I mean, yeah.
It would suck if that happens, but again, like ways to get around it. And I'm worried that Burnie's just gonna say, you know, this is what we got to work with. This is what we got to work with, and they're not gonna bring back the voice actor, which will suck. But
I don't even know if Rooster Teeth would let him. But that's just like that. That's why I said earlier. I'm like, just can you do fucking business just for like a couple days? Just let him in, let him record his lines, pay him a certain amount for the session.
You don't even have to bring him in. Let him record his lines in his own house.
I mean, you could. I don't know how well that would transfer, though. That's because I don't know how well that would work. It might. And if you could do that, then great. But just, like, I'm just saying, just do business with these people and get them out quickly. You know, it doesn't have to be a whole thing. Well, as much as they'll make it one.
Well, another question, because we're going to the whole topic of, like, talking about things out of the show, like out of control. Which Halo are they going to beat? Are they going to go with Infinite? Are they going to go back with 5? Like, what are we going to do here?
Using the Unreal Engine, which tells me it's Halo Infinite, but that's assuming that they're even using Infinite. They might not use a Halo, which I think would be... Red versus Blue Zero found out the hard way that was a bad idea. So
they have to use a Halo.
They have to. Well, I've said even if. I think the downfall of Halo and the downfall of Red versus Blue both coincide in different ways, so they're pretty even. So I think that you still have to use a Halo, though. It's the heart of the series. That's what made it so appealing, and where the soul of the series is because it's in a video game like Halo, and you have to get creative. Now, obviously, they've gone outside of Halo now a number of times, but
yeah,
you know, and they're going to do that in this season. That's fine, but I'm saying, like, a lot of scenes where they're just talking or it's just the original people, like, you definitely use a Halo game for that. So I think not using a Halo would be a huge mistake. The thing was with Halo 5, the maps were so bad and the color palette was so bland. It really shows, and that was a big problem, especially when they tried to recreate Blood Gulch.
Oh, that became a
big issue. But, you know, I just think you have to use a halo. Even you just have to do the best with it if you can. I just don't think a season where there's absolutely no actual halo involved. I think that's a big loss because it's just that's what the series is. Like that's a huge part of it.
Especially just Infinite looks so much.
And Infinite's a lot better looking.
It's a lot better looking, but it looks so much different than a regular Halo.
It reminds me a little bit of Reach.
Yeah, and just from my knowledge, like season 13, that was in Halo 5.
Yeah.
So
no, season 13 was still using 4.
Really, I don't remember that.
5 was when they got to 15.
Well, this is what I'm going to bring up then. If we're retconning everything, we're going back to like the ending part of 13. Do they just stick with Halo 4?
No, well, no, because they said they're using the Unreal Engine. Unless they're just using that, I don't know. Maybe
well, the first episode has to be with Halo 4. They have to
it's
show.
True.
They have to show it.
Well, not if they animated it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
If they do like an animation, then they do a time skip. They can do that differently, but especially if they end up on a different planet or something, then yeah, you might just go right to Infinite.
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't even think about that before, actually.
Because it ends in Halo 4, so if we're ending in Halo 4, are we going to do, like you said, are we going to do an animation?
That's kind of like the last Halo feeling Halo, so that would kind of make sense if they just skipped over 5, and 5 was just the pet simulation.
I mean, that would work.
It was so bland. I almost slightly don't blame the people for Zero in terms of using the map, like not using the Halo maps, but at the same time, that was such a dumb idea. It's can't be ignored.
That doesn't take up for the lack of character.
That doesn't take up for the lack of a lot of things on that show.
Exactly. My other question, because we're talking about what game it's going to be in, I'm going to move back into the actual show here, because we'll actually, before we go back to that, because we're talking about which Halo, you brought up the point. What shotgun is Sarge going to use? Like, are we gonna? Are we gonna use like the Halo 4 shotgun? Or are we going to go?
And is Griff gonna have the Griff shot?
Is Griff going to?
Because he uses it only at the very end of 13. I think does he get it back? So I don't know how that's gonna work either.
And you also brought up the point: does Tucker keep Meta's armor?
That's the other thing too. Yeah, because that's probably not an Infinite. So I hope they don't I hope they don't animate the whole thing. There needs to be some Halo in there. This actually, I might even. I mean, we'll get to this topic later, but I would definitely take a trip back somewhere into an older Halo. Not the whole thing, but just
maybe
for
like a
an
flashback sequence
or a flashback, just something like that. Because I think if it's the last season, you definitely want to revisit that once.
I like the idea, and this is what I was thinking regarding Tucker Meta's armor, is if they use it only in animation styles. Like if we are gonna do the animation for the first episode, we're gonna show all the armor animated. Then they go with him in regular armor and they just lock it up and they say, oh, we're only gonna use this when it comes to a serious matter. They can just have that in an animated sequence, and then if they get into another big battle, it can just be him animated putting on the armor and then fighting.
Yeah, that's what they did.
So that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. I don't expect him to keep it, but it's hard to just think they'll just toss it because it's supposed to be like a really overpowered set of armor base.
And you can't just get rid of that. Like that's the Meta's armor. You can't just say, oh, I don't want it anymore and throw it away. Like why would you do that?
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it. I don't want to be overpowered anymore. Like, what are you doing? But that also begs the question. So we're talking about the Meta's armor and everything, and we're talking about him. Oh, I don't want the armor anymore. This is what I'm worried about. I really don't want them to do this. But I have... Now that Burnie's at the helm again writing, I don't think they're going to do this. And let me just stress that. I don't think this is going to happen. But do you think at the last show or anything like that, do you think they show their faces?
That's possible, actually. I didn't think about that.
Because
I don't know if they will.
I don't think they will because... that might put a sour taste in everyone's mouth. Just be like, oh, this is how Sarge looks. This is how Griff looks.
Yeah, especially if they don't design him the right way, then you got a fucking problem. I wouldn't even go near it, but it's
the only one that I think they can show and get away with would be Wash. Like, you should show, like, Carolina without the helmet, and they show Wash taking off his helmet, and that be it.
Wash seems like it'd be a pretty simple character to design.
Because they already saw the back of his head in, was it season 10 or 9? No, not.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I think they can get away with it with Wash, but if they take off Tucker's helmet or Sarge's
Carolina they could do. They already have.
Well, they've already done Carolina. That's what I'm saying. So I'm thinking they can get away with that if they are going to go in like the romance angle, which I really hope it doesn't turn into a damn soap opera. But if
that's what I was worried about this season, because they like to do a lot of, in the more recent seasons, they like a lot
gotta
of
have more soap operas.
Need more stories.
Storytelling.
I don't want it. I mean, there's going to be emotion in here, and I think there should be to a degree, but I don't want it to
there's
turn
gotta
into...
There's got to be some seriousness. They got to do like how they did in the older
seasons. There's got to be a balance.
There's got to be a great balance between funny and serious. They've always been really good at that in the older seasons, and I'm really hoping it stays with this one.
Yeah, I don't think this season should go like the way Season 10 did, but Season 10 kind of had a reason to go that way, because they were capping everything.
Never watch Season 10 in one sitting, by the way. Never do that.
Terrible idea.
You're gonna be really depressed if you watch Season 10, especially if you are like, if you're like how me and Nash are, where we sat down and we're like, we're gonna watch every season in one sitting, just season 1, 2, 3. We even made that rule. Like, when we get to Season 10, we're not watching the full thing.
We're gonna have to cap that.
We're gonna have to cap it like half the season. We're gonna watch, and then the next time we hang out, the other half.
Yeah, but. Yeah, I would think there should be a balance with the comedy. I mean, especially with the Reds and Blues, there has to be. I don't want to see like a full soap opera, but there's room for that. There's room for that emotion in there, especially if they're going to revive the Alpha or something. Again, I don't know if that's what they're doing, but that's an idea. I mean, so...
I still like the idea, if they are going to show a face, they only show Wash, because you can't design...
He's a freelancer, so they used to show all their faces.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, these characters have been so iconic with the helmets on. If you take the helmets off, I feel like you lose a lot of that mystique, plus you're losing a lot of, like, idea of, like, like, this is what they look like. And even if the season's great, but the character models are stupid, no one's going to remember this.
Like, if they go the route where it's like, well, you were just stereotyping, that's not what it's like, don't be that... Don't do that. Yeah. Like, just make... the stereotype is what makes them.
You just thought Sarge was an old man who hated everybody. He's actually, like, young. No, that wouldn't make any sense. You thought Caboose was dumb, and he's actually, like, this real...
Yeah, like a handsome guy. It's like, no. I mean, he shouldn't look like Jason, but...
No, of course not. Like, if he looks like Jason, I'd be scared. Like, you thought Simmons was just a nerd and he takes it off and he's just flowing like Fabio looking.
Yeah. Fabio.
It would make no sense. Like, he's supposed to be the nerd with glasses and like a book in his hand. It would probably like the tape over like the middle part.
It might low-key be funny if they did that with Griff, just because what Sarge thinks of Griff.
That would be hilarious if like Griff takes off the helmet and he just looks like a nerd and Sarge just goes, "What the damn? I thought you were like a fat piece of shit." And he's actually like really skinny.
Yeah.
Especially how they always mess around with him being fat and lazy. He takes off, he's like ripped.
Yeah, I would. I mean, again, it's just keep it simple. Don't try to, we're gonna go against the stereotypes. It's like, no, in this case, the stereotypes are needed. Not even.
And that's just my opinion on it, because I just completely forgot about it. I forgot to write that down when we were discussing. But just that idea, like, if they're going to show a face, they can show Carolinas, they can show Washes, but don't show anyone else. And
yeah, I wouldn't.
Take off Lopez somewhere, it's just a bunch of
wires.
Yeah,
I was just thinking that. Well, I was going to say, take off Lopez's helmet, there's just a helmet under.
Just more helmet?
Just more helmet.
Yeah. You take off a mask and there's just another mask. So, what are your final thoughts with this?
We forgot.
What did we forget about? Oh, yeah, we forgot about that. So
actually, we forgot a couple. You forgot a couple. I remembered this.
Oh, really? So you're just that so much higher on the pedestal because you're...
Well, right now that seems to be the case.
Oh, really? So, season 17, I believe it is, when Locust comes back.
No, that's 15.
15, when he comes back, whatever. I don't remember the seasons that great. I haven't watched season 15, 16, or 17 in 6 years.
Yeah.
So, Locust...
Yeah, do your research.
Calm down, all right? Calm down over there. I'm a fan. I'm not sitting here remembering every single second. I'm not Dave Meltzer when it comes to wrestling, okay? But
well, neither does Meltzer anymore.
That's besides the point. But when it comes to Locust, him coming back and everything, what do we do with Locust? Or does he just stay away? I think personally, just stay away. There's no reason for him to bring him back.
I think it would be interesting if he came back to help them, but I think if you're really looking at this from a story perspective, it's like he still killed God knows how many people. He was still a mercenary. He still said, he said at the end they wouldn't find him. I don't think you have to travel that road. I think his story's told. Could you? Maybe. But would you get it? Like, would it be worth it? Would you get enough out of it to where it would be worth exploring? I just don't think. I don't think they could just team up and forgive him like they did when they tried that in 15.
That made no sense. It was like, oh, I'm a good guy now.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in 15 that didn't make any sense.
Oh, he's a good guy now. Let's be friends. Like, no, Locust tried to murder you multiple times, and then the whole idea of Locust just being like, I don't kill anymore. What? That doesn't make any sense.
It's like, yeah, it's because you just haven't had anybody to kill, or I don't know. I don't think you touched that. I think that story's told the way it needed to be told. Don't mess with it.
Referring back to the trailer as well, the thing that got me, and I know it got you too, because we were discussing it a lot moving forward. When Church is looking at the simulations, and then that voice comes in, and that voice is just yelling at him like, all these simulations, all this over and over and over again. Who do you think the voice is? Do you think it's a recurring character? Do you think it's a character that's been in the show? Or do you think it's someone completely new?
If it's somebody completely new, I think they got a problem, because it's the last season.
I think it'd be a huge problem well.
I think if there's anywhere you're going to use nostalgia, it might be there. The problem is, though, if they use the wrong... Like, if they use... A lot of people think it's Sigma, just for an example.
They would make no sense. He died in the end.
Yeah, like, it would be too... That's one of those things where I say I want them to use nostalgia, but I want them to keep this balanced and keep the story sensible. I wouldn't have just be like, oh, yeah, Sigma somehow survived. No, don't do that. Just... I don't think it even is, because I don't know why he would hide his voice. That's why I said I think it could be text, and maybe it's just a memory, because
the memory
at
fragment
one point
messing
it
with him.
mentions that there's a memory that that's still there, but you can't quite remember it. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's
it would make sense too, because it's Epsilon, and
Yeah.
Epsilon is tortured. Yeah, and he's tortured
and he
by
gets the memories from Alpha. At least I've always taken it this way. He gets
I
the
have
memories
too.
from Alpha right at that scene where him and Church, when Washington takes Church, aka the Alpha, into to find the Epsilon unit, and they have that little, I guess, I don't know, mental exchange you want to call it. I always assumed that was how Epsilon got some of the memories along with Caboose, because he had to get them somewhere. He wouldn't have known a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah, but I think because you had the idea because of the voice, it sounded a lot like Tex's voice module from the first season.
Yeah.
And if that is what they're gonna do, and I think we were talking about Tex earlier, that would be, in my way, unless they're thinking of some other great way to bring back Tex, I think that's a way you bring back Tex, and it's not something that's gonna piss off people because it's just the memory haunting him. Because the memory always haunted him of Tex.
Yeah, if that's
So
the case, I think
that
they
memory
get away
still
with that.
being there makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could do that throughout the season and just have him finally maybe find... I mean, because even though, I mean, he did find peace at the end of Season 9, but I always think there's still something there, maybe. I don't know. Again,
you can always bring that up because you can and this is going into real life as well, which it sucks saying, but even in real life, you can forget trauma and get over trauma, but it's still always there. Especially
sometimes, yeah.
So he can get over that in Season 9. It can go away in Season 9, but that idea is still probably there in the back of his mind.
I honestly, we'll get to this another episode in depth, but it's like I never really quite understood Season 9 doing that, because it's
I don't either.
Because it's like, well, I forget you, but he doesn't forget her. I think
You
they
can.
were more trying to say that he got over her, but I don't think they put that well enough. I don't know. It was kind of a weird thing.
I completely agree with, like, he's okay. He's okay with the memory of her now. It no longer haunts him. But if they're bringing that back of, like, the voice in the back of his head because he can't save his friends and because he couldn't save, like, the chairman couldn't save Tex, or couldn't save Allison, they couldn't save her, and now Church can't save his friends, and that voice in the back of his head is just egging at him the entire time, like, you couldn't save them. After all these simulations, you can't save them, and then that voice ends up being the memory of Tex haunting him the way Allison's memory haunted Chairman.
Maybe.
I would honestly be happy with that, because I'd be like, wow, look at that. It's something that actually makes sense, and it relates to real life trauma, which is, it sucks to say, but it actually makes sense.
But he's only an AI at the same time. But I guess
But he was always
the way
more
this show
human
works
than an AI.
Well, that was always the thing. Tex technically wasn't. So that, I mean, I just don't think they can fully bring her back, but I think they can use her for stuff for her.
That would be the
image.
nostalgia I'm okay
Because
with.
even in the trailer, that voice talking to him is like, well, you know, I'm pretty sure you're doing all this, so, you know, it's... And the other, I mean, it might not even be relevant, because Church is technically dead, so what, you know, this is all technically before Season 13 ends.
Yeah.
So Church is supposed to be dead by the time that battle even starts at the very end, so...
Do they retcon that and be like, no, he's not
I
dead?
hope not.
I hope not. I really hope not.
I would not fuck up that ending. That was because even though they messed it up, I always say, like, that's what I'm saying for this. It's like, show us what happened and don't leave us hanging like they did at 13, but don't retcon it. Good God. That would be a terrible idea.
How would you want to end this new season, this final season, the final thing you're going to see Red versus Blue? How would you want to end it?
I would have them go their separate ways at the very end. Because they've
Really?
been together so long. And if you're ending the series, I would have them finally, and I don't know how the hell or what they would end up doing. That could be a funny little ending in its own if they did like an epilogue, but I would finally have them separate. I would just have, maybe Wash and Carolina stay together as a team for something, but I would have...
Brett Griffin's sister, they go home.
Maybe not even go home. Maybe these people somehow still are attached to stuff, but I just mean from each other specifically. I'd finally have them end up in different places just because it's the end of the series and they've been together so long, and it's not like they can't communicate. So.
Imagine Sarge goes back to Blood Gulch.
Yeah, to fight. Yeah, Sarge is the only one that still thinks this is a shoot.
My worry is that they end like the last episode, the last scene, they end in Blood Gulch, which I mean, it wouldn't be a horrible ending, but
cool.
It'd be a really cool ending. Be like that'd be like going back to the original Halo. If they're in Halo like 1 or 2.
But what's
in Blood
the
Gulch.
problem with that is it's cool in theory, but what's the purpose?
Yeah, so I really
know?
I really don't hope they do that. But something in the back of my mind is just saying like, oh, they're going to end it on the nostalgia, them being where they started, which I mean, it would work, but I don't like it. I like your idea of them going separate ways. I think it's got to end in a way that makes everyone happy and doesn't bury.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't want... Like, it's not like they're in a position where if you're imagining this ending in your head for a minute, it's not like if they go their separate ways, they can't communicate. It's not like the Stone Age or something. They can communicate fine.
They're in the future and everything. Imagine it ending... This is what I was thinking. Like, if they are going to go the separate ways, then we're going back to the original gimmick, talking about like the helmets and everything.
Or, well, real quick, just to interrupt, I thought something they might start with the season since it's in a different Halo. Maybe they go their separate ways after 13, and then they get back together for something.
I was saying if they're going to end with that idea of them all going their separate ways, what I would do is like they're all going their separate ways, they're all saying their goodbyes and everything. And then imagine they're going to end with just like one more dicky, just one more like joke. It's probably be from Griff or from Caboose. And just like Wash takes off his helmet and then him and Carolina, like they're going to go their separate way and everything like that. And just Griff or Caboose just roast his face. Be like, well, that's what you fucking look like.
Well, it'd be easy to do the Why Are We Here ending too.
That's true.
That's always, you can't probably find a more fitting ending than just going back to that question. Honestly, and that I'd be fine with that.
The final dialogue, why are we here? And it's just like, shut the hell up, Simmons.
Yeah. Simmons, shut up.
So, final thoughts. Are you excited for this? Are you not excited for it? Like, are you? I
wouldn't say excited. I don't really get excited anymore because usually everything in the modern day, entertainment-wise, is a disappointment because of where we're at, and that's a whole different video altogether. And especially from a company like Rooster Teeth now, I really don't trust them. But with Burnie writing this thing and knowing it's the last season, at least supposedly, and I pray to God it is because they really got to end it.
This has got to be like, I wrote that as a note, but I don't even think we have to discuss. Like, this has to be like the done. Like, they're not doing any more seasons.
I mean,
like,
if you'd asked us both 8 years ago, we would have said hope Red versus Blue goes on forever because you're still in high school and we just love stuff.
That's crazy to think we were still in high school during that time.
I'm kidding. But it's like you want it to go on forever, but when you see it fall, and it's like we've seen a lot of things fall, especially over the past 7 or so years, particularly. But
look at me with Call of Duty. I said I wanted to go on forever, and then after Black Ops 2, and then they did like Modern Warfare 3 and everything like that. I'm just like, what are we doing anymore? Like, why are we continuing this?
I mean, look at you look at the greatness that was Seinfeld, and they knew when to stop.
That 70s show that went on way too long.
Nah, not way too long, but part of the problem was they lost their main character at the end of the last season of the show.
The best side character. But yeah, like it's like you're saying, like things go on for so long, and you get to the point where you lose that feeling, and I feel like I lost that towards like season 16, 17. I'm like, this isn't.
Well, those were shit. So
yeah, but
that's the problem.
Yeah, but it's like this isn't Red versus Blue anymore, well, yeah. and I'm really hoping final thought wise is like they capture that feeling, even just for like an episode or two. They recapture that original feeling of Red versus Blue. Like
I'm hoping they'll try.
They try, like, even if they fail, they try and they show effort into the season, because towards the end it just felt like they just did not put in any more effort anymore, and they were just like pumping them out for content.
Well, even like 15 kind of was, and then 16 and well, if you look at the end of 13, it seems like that's the end, and then 14 seems like season 15. It's it seemed like with 13 they were gonna end it kind of, and then 14 it seems like they were getting forced to write, and that's why they did the whole mini story thing essentially, and then 15 they came back with something that was completely uninspired, not to mention with the writer who did that, and then you have characters that don't make any sense in there, and then you have wasted time, social jokes, just all this bullshit they threw in there.
They start bringing in like modern events. It's like what are you doing?
They didn't, and again, we'll get into this later in the different episodes, but like season 16, they try to outdo themselves, which was a terrible idea because you weren't going to outdo anything that was done in the first 13 seasons. You needed to have a settle down season, and they didn't do that. So I think that, and that's why I said earlier, like, this doesn't have to be the best work Burnie Burns has ever done. It just needs to be serviceable. It's got to be good, but it needs to be. It just needs to be consistent and a proper ending. That's what we're looking for here.
I don't as long as they start off good. Like even if the middle is just like a bunch of bleh, but still is like the main characters doing justice to the main characters, and then gives a proper send off. Not no cliffhanger. Not no maybe we can come back and think. Just like a proper send off. Everyone leaves, and then they say like that is the end of the canonical Red versus Blue, and then as they're like, oh, we're going to go do side stories, or we're going to bring back the Zero cast, God forbid, or we're going to do anything like that, we don't involve the main Reds and Blues anymore. They're done. Their story is done.
They might still do PSAs after that.
I'm fine with PSAs because they're not canonical.
Yeah. Even that I would just stop because they don't even serve a purpose at this point. But, yeah, they're still probably going to use the characters for some promotion. But
I don't care about promotion, but I'm just saying like the actual show, like this should be the proper send off. They leave, and then they leave, or they show where they're at, and then it ends. They don't do anything else. Yeah. They're not in any more seasons, and then there
shouldn't be more. Like this should be the end period.
Yeah, but
they had a chance to do the side story stuff, and they half got it right and half blew it.
Yeah.
So again, we'll go over that,
But yeah, so that's
that.
That's our opinions on the new Red vs. Blue reconstruction season coming. I'm sure whenever the show does come out, we're going to have plenty of opinions when it comes to that. Our reactions and everything of that nature. But I hope you all enjoyed it.
Final question.
Oh, final question.
Are we going to get the answer to why are we here?
Do you think... Well, that's the age-old question, though. Why are we here?
I don't know. I think we should end this.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed our rambling and bullshit. I'm Schneider signing off with Nash, of course. No final thing. You're done.
I already said my final thing.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.